morning. We're about to start our next session on SME lending, what is new. My name is Torris, and I'm a senior contributor for Crowdfund Insider, which is an international publication from the US which covers all forms of alternative lending, crowdfunding, trade finance, consumer lending, and of course, SME lending. So today we have the pleasure of having 4 speakers who come from different geographies and also represent very different business models. So to start, I will ask them to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll go to the heart of the question, what type of SMEs and what type of lending are they doing? So I'll start maybe with the far end. And if you want to introduce yourself, Rich.
Hello, Rich Wagner, CEO and founder of Cashplus. We are a UK digital challenger to banks, been in operation for one of the older fintechs, over 15 years, providing solutions to over 100,000 SMEs and looking to be moving from a challenger to bank to being a bank challenger with our bank charter in progress with the regulator with expectations. It's been a 2-year journey, looking to become a bank in the first half of 2020, which is this year. So we're quite excited by that. So there you go. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Christopher?
Yes, my name is Christopher. I'm co-founder and CEO of Kapilendo. We are a Germany-based SME banking platform. So the core product that we have is lending, but we also offer liquidity management, current account and cards, so like a whole banking spectrum. Currently, we exist since 2015. Have 200 projects on the platform that we funded and focus on German and Austrian SMEs at the moment, expanding to Nordics and the Netherlands in the next step.
Thank you. Maybe you can start the timer because I see that it's not running.
Gives us more time.
Hi everyone,
Florian.
I'm Florian Breton. I'm the founder and CEO of MiiMOSA, which is the largest platform dedicated to agriculture and food, with 2,500 projects supported in 5 years. We are actually in France and Belgium, and we are a team of 25 people, and that's it.
Thank you. So you see the diversity already in terms of geographies, and now a completely different business model. Can you explain, how you changed basically your focus, Jens?
Yeah, it's not completely different, but first of all, thanks for inviting me. My name is Jens Woloszczak. I'm the CEO of Spotcap. We are a multinational fintech company operating in the credit SME lending space. We are headquartered in Berlin, but have offices in London, Amsterdam, and Sydney. So pretty multinational. Have lent over 400 million in credit to SMEs in the unsecured space. We have extended our business model back 2 years, where we have also started to offer white label solutions to financial institutions, predominantly in the continental European space, but also abroad. So that's a little bit of a dual strategy in that sense, to not only target SMEs directly, but also enable financial institutions basically to provide better services, and therefore being a kind of lending as a service player in addition. Yeah.
Thank you. So SME finance, SME lending, it's a big word, but you're not targeting the same SMEs. So maybe can you expand on, what is your target SME and what type of products are you offering to them and why? Why did you choose that specific position? And we start again with you, Rich.
All right, well, it's a good question because even SME is a wide definition. I challenge people that S is even a wide definition. And certainly for Cashplus, who has born itself from a consumer current account and credit proposition, we saw a very big detriment and overlooked customer base within that micro business, and primarily the 600,000 to 700,000 startups that actually incorporate in the UK every single year. The disintermediation of high street banks, the unwillingness to work with that population, because when you think about it, a startup SME, you're looking at somebody that, although personally they may have a credit score, personally they may actually have credit history, but as a company newly started, nearly 50% of SMEs actually get declined, and the other 50% need to provide a director guarantee. So the market is quite broken in the UK, and through Cashplus' ability to underwrite individual director capabilities and newly established businesses, we're really focused on that micro SME product, using overdrafts as a proposition because we can use the transactional data from current accounts to cross-sell a very prudent and very cost-effective overdraft to the SME or that micro business immediately. And we also offer SME corporate cards and business credit cards to that population. Again, a population that nearly 60 to 70% get declined for these types of products through normal UK high street banks.
And at Kapilendo, you have a very different target, don't you?
Exactly. Like, our customers are normally a bit larger, so we're focusing on the mid-market segment rather. So the loan sizes are between 250,000 and up to 8 million in the German market. So companies tend to be at least 2 years old, have annual reports that we can check. So we focus on companies that are still too small to be like on the priority lane in their high street banks. So we just faster. We do unsecured classical lending, but we also do mezzanine funding. We issued the first digital bond in Germany on the blockchain basis, where we have capital market access now that we can offer. So for us, it's a pure efficiency game, focusing on customers that are highly bankable, but normally tend to take loans that are a bit lower. And as I said, that's sort of 80% of our business model, and then we serve them on a broader scale, because also what we heard in the talk before, it's about attention of companies, so that's why we try to have a broader product range, basically.
Florian, let's talk about your very specific target in the agriculture world, because you're offering a product that is not only a financial product.
Yeah, exactly. As I said in transition, MiiMOSA is the leader, or is the largest funding platform dedicated to agriculture and food. I'm a grandson of wine growers in south of France, but it's not only this. When I launched MiiMOSA in 2015, I had the ambition to accelerate the current food transition. In fact, we are solving two main problems. First of all, borrowing money in our thematic more than the others is a painful and long process. Long process because, for example, if you want to receive loan in the traditional banking system, in our thematic, it can last up to 3 months. With MiiMOSA, it's only 2 days. Painful because actually agriculture and food is living a real transition, a real revolution, and funding on this thematic not evaluate since 1 century. So actually, this revolution necessitates an evolution, necessitates actually a real suitable funding in order to accelerate it. We are solving also a second issue. It's for investors. Indeed, investors are looking for yield, they are looking for transparency, but they are also looking for meaning. Meaning is very important. Meaning is impact. So actually, thanks to our technology, we are matching efficiently borrowers and investors in order to take part of food and agriculture revolution.
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting for the audience to know where you come from, because you are the grandson of a wine grower, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you realized that all the growers and around you wanted to transition to more of a sustainable, environment-friendly
and organic
agriculture.
Food as well.
But that transition cost an awful lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge market. For example, in France, only in France, this the agriculture French market, it's something like 25 billion of euros each years, and almost 50% is financed by traditional bank.
Thank you. So Jens, you have a lot of experience in unsecured lending to SMEs. What was your target, and is it the same target that you're helping banks with lending as a service to address?
I think when it comes to our direct lending business, our target customers are probably not too dissimilar what Christopher and also Rich to a certain extent has elaborated. So we're operating in the more short to midterm kind of term level, and that means that normally people, SME owners, directors come to us to get funding to manage their cash flows, bridge receivable gaps, etc. So that's something which is usually rather something where there is no security desired from their side. That's something, again, which banks, at least in the past, haven't really touched. And therefore, we obviously operate in an unsecured space as a direct lender, probably with ticket sizes from like 50 maybe to 200,000 euros, with guarantees involved selectively, but not with asset security. That is a little bit our sweet spot from a direct lending perspective, and I think we have done here a good job because it's a nice complementary way to what banks are doing overall, or what they basically, which customers they do not serve. When it comes to our, let's say, white label solutions, we're actually obviously allowing banks to also do a similar offering, but our technology actually allows to also assess more the micro businesses up to 50,000 euros, for instance, in a way that they can make instant decisions, the banks, with our technology, which is based on obviously some financial data, but mostly transactional data, as Rich also said, which we have seen to be most powerful over the last 5-6 years in terms of predicting the probability of, let's say, a default in that sense, or of not defaulting. And that is something we had to leverage, and we have put obviously also in an MPI, and that allows, for instance, also one of our bank partners in the German-speaking markets to actually make credit decision under 1 minute after the application is submitted. And that is more, and their customer base is often, particularly for unsecured digital lending, is still the smaller ones, and that's why it's quite a complementary offering in the end for us as a group.
And you've operated in many different countries, and what was the lesson you learned from operating in different countries in terms of the reusability of your credit models? You know, can you expand a bit?
It's
on
actually, I mean, obviously there are certain country-specific differences, but in essence, if there's a certain homogeneity in the markets, then a good retailer is a good retailer across markets, so you can actually assess the transactional data and make decisions even beyond borders. I think at least as a starting point in a pretty good manner. Then after probably like 2 years, you really start to develop your country-specific models because you have enough performance data. But overall, that's something which, especially when you look at OECD countries and you cluster your markets a little bit, then you can actually also come up with no only country-specific models, at least for the start, with still model genies of 60% and more. So we have been quite actually happy with our model performance in that regard. But at the same time, obviously, when going global as in the SME financing space, being it as a direct lender, that is a very complex topic, and therefore for beyond our direct lending efforts, we have also decided to offer these white label solutions which allow to banks, which allows us to actually reach more global scale, because it's you don't need to have the respective funding costs in each market, which are often local currencies, obviously, and also compliance is very different, regulation is very different. One of the reasons why we haven't operated as a direct lender in the German-speaking markets is that we would have needed a full banking license. I think the further panel before has already outlined that, and therefore we have decided to go that path.
Yeah, you're addressing the topic that was addressed in the previous session, the topic of the cost of capital. And talking about the cost of capital, two of our panelists are eyeing, to become a bank in some respects, and in not the same fashion. So maybe we'll start with you, Christopher, for a change. You are expanding the range of offerings that you are offering to your SMEs. Can you explain your business model and the reasoning behind this transition?
Yeah, so we started out as a pure crowd lending platform, basically only offering unsecured senior lending, expanded the lending product range that we had to come up with the digital bond that we offer in the German market. But what we can see and what we also heard on the panel before is that the main enemy we are having is basically also the attention of the SME. So if you have some companies that already look for alternatives, but the main problem that you have in the market is like a timing issue. So the alternative is nice, but normally companies tend to go to a bank first. Our companies normally have maybe a product range or like a lending product that they need of 500,000 euros. So it's too complicated for the bank to give a fast decision, but it's too low on margin to give a fast decision, so it's a long-lasting process. In the end, they might be declined because they want to invest in digitalization, where the bank says there's no asset behind digitalization. What should I do with that? How should I finance that? So it's a long-lasting process. So when companies tend to look for alternative financing, it's often like the situation is too late. You need to be too fast on that end. So what we saw is offering a broader product range to be closer to the company in the first extent, to also all those data that we had, those data points are the same data points that we analyze. So we want to expand the product range by offering like a financial cockpit where you have a current account, liquidity management and lending products, because that's like our companies are mainly looking for that. So if you say we're becoming a bank from a solutions perspective, we absolutely do. If we want to have a license for it, we see if that's necessary. At the moment we don't, so we have those classical issues. They either want to invest, they either want to lend, or they want to do their transaction and payments, and all those services we are kind of offering. And by that, gathering and orchestrating all the data that we need to also offer maybe beyond services, beyond banking services like personnel management, accounting services. So building the whole ecosystem for the company, because what we see in the German market is still that banks kind of offer systems where the company needs to decide, okay, how do I fit in that ecosystem, while we offer an ecosystem that fits into the companies. This is what we try to do, and by that leading or solving the timing issue as well, to be at the right spot when we do alternative lending. It's the timing issue, and it's like... So
basically you're trying to leverage the maximum the relationship that we have with these SMEs. I mean, it's a relatively human intensive compared to maybe other fintechs. It's more human intensive. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's more human intensive. It's in the end, it's like, because we're focusing on larger companies, of course we could be more human intensive, but 80 to 90% of our touch points are digital. Mm-hmm. So what we actually do is, even there again, it's an efficiency game. So we take out normal touch points that you have in a bank where you maybe say, I want to change my address, I want to, like, how do I get my TAN? We take all those touch points out and make the touch points that we have actually high impact. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea about the business model.
And in terms of cost of capital, to come back to that idea, you had you launched a fund, if I understand well, and you even raised money for a company through an initial coin offering. Can you elaborate on that?
Exactly. So the platform right now, 80% of our funding is coming from retail investors still, because that's where we started at. Like a year or two ago, we were 100% funded by retail investors, which are right now 40,000 investors on the platform, where we also, of course, offer services. We actually don't see that this is a high cost of funding, because there's a, like, German investors tend to look for like fixed interest investments, and at the moment that's an attractive investment that we can offer. So this is one part of the business model. The other part is that we of course also work with debt investors and institutional investors, which are mainly outside of Germany, so they're not German based at the moment. So we are setting up the fund which launches in the second quarter, which is especially aimed at German family offices and institutional investors, because they need the funding vehicle. If we look outside in the UK, Netherlands or whatever, like, those markets are all ahead of the German market. The German market is always lagging behind in all those things. So if you want to attract German institutional investors, you normally bring the investment vehicle with you.
Okay, and expand a little bit about the initial coin offering.
Yeah, that's a new regulatory possibility in the German market to, not have it's an STO basically that we do. Without going into detail, we developed the whole procedure of the origination, the structuring, the tokenization, the custody solution, which is licensed by the 1st of January now, so we're going to be one of the first companies aiming to get the custody solution licensed within the German market. I think we were the first ones that took this product into the mass market, basically. So we have 1,500 retail investors investing basically on a crypto basis, but it's still using SEPA as a currency, or the SEPA system as a currency. So we took it into the mass market by not doing the SEO for us, but for one of our clients, which is like a gastro concept with 120 million revenue, and we placed 2.3 million. Which we can see, like, again, there it's an efficiency game, because right now, if you want to offer a bond or place a bond on the capital markets in Germany, you have like a lot of intermediaries in between, you have a lot of costs in between. So basically, it's very difficult to place a bond under 10 million euros, or you might find a partner that does it, but it gets, from a percentage-wise, very, very expensive. So we made this process more efficient by taking out intermediaries, using the blockchain as a base technology, having a real security that we placed, and by that we're able to do that with like 500,000 euros.
Yeah. I don't think many people in the audience know that Germany was leading in terms of securities token offering. So let me show a raise of hands. Who knew that they had issued a security token for a small business? Who knew about that? You know, I don't see any hands, you know.
That's my main problem.
Talking about what's new in SME finance, you know, there is a lot new. So, Rich, what does it inspire you? To hear about this security token offering? Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
In the UK, I guess you'd call me more of a boring banker because there's so much money and customer engagement that you can create in simple offerings. And the last panel talked about lending products being complex, and is banking even more complex. I would reverse it. We've built a transactional banking proposition over the last decade that delighted customers with basic current accounts that allowed them to move money better than banks. We accumulated about $500 million on our balance sheet, but with an e-money license, you're not able to use it, rightfully so. And what happened was we knew the next evolution was to lend money. Well, going to a traditional bank to get money, you had two options. Go to a high street bank and basically spend your blood, sweat, and tears and distract your business by trying to get lending from a high street lender. And what you result in is a very little credit line. I can tell you that our first corporate lending facility was a whopping £2 million. Now, in our portfolio, we could probably deploy £2 million of lending in about 3 or 4 hours. So it really wasn't that conducive. Second off is that they created extremely conservative underwriting where we would have to, for every 2 pounds of lending we created, we would have to contribute 1 pound of our working capital to that lending. So there was a 50% leverage on it, extremely conservative on that. And so it made it very difficult to grow. And ultimately, our cost of funds today, pre-bank license, is around 9%. Now, that 9% cost of capital, unfortunately, we can't absorb it. We are a company that has been profitable for 8 consecutive years, and we have to pass on, unfortunately, that 9% cost of capital directly to our SMEs. I don't like it, but the fact is there is still demand for it. What we're excited about is the day we become a bank, which is certainly months, not years away, we'll be able to leverage the 500 million pounds of money that's sitting on our balance sheet. That is zero cost of funds. And I truly say zero because we already have a transactional business that's a standalone profitable business that its innate quality is bringing in deposits of the current account for SMEs to use and transact every day. And thus, we're able then to redeploy that in a much more efficient way and a much cost-effective way that actually gives great benefit to the SME for becoming a bank, and that certainly has been the general business case for us. And just to put numbers on it, we're already profitable. The day we become a bank, we will add, without doing anything, without growing at all, we will add 4 million pounds of PBT annually to the bottom line simply by having that bank license, without doing anything else. And that's what is exciting about banking.
Thank you, Rich. We certainly wish you well. Florian, you have a very original model in terms of raising funds to a type of co-funding model. Can you explain to us?
Yeah, well, when I launched MiiMOSA in 2015, it was actually in the reward-based model. So we targeted and we were focused to small farmers. So for your information, citizens, people can give money in exchange of products or, for example, agro-touristic experiences. In 2018, we launched our first lending offer. But in 2018, only citizens, only retail investors were able to finance our project. It was the beginning of our activity, and we were able to finance from 15,000 euros up to 200,000 euros. These new saving products were a success from the start. For your information, the average investment in France through lending platform is about 200 euros at 6.5%. Through MiiMOSA, it was 400 euros at 4.5%. So my vision, my intuition, my bet was starting to work because indeed investors are looking for yield, transparency, but not also, they are looking for means. But then in 2019, so 1 year ago only, in order to scale up our activity and to our impact, we launched a new offer named MiiMOSA Transition. The difference is that now we offer the opportunity to institutional to finance our massive project in order to almost 1 million euros. So now our funding volume from 2018 until 2019 increased from 3.5 million to 10 million. Only 35% by institutional funders like asset manager, bank, and the main agro-food industry leaders like Carrefour, like Danone, like Nestlé, that they are financing through MiiMOSA the food transition of their farmers. And that's very new and that's very singular, I think.
Thank you. Jens, you were a balance sheet lender from the start. What is your experience about that? What is your opinion about the different forms of fundings, marketplace funding or balance sheet lending?
Yeah, I think in the end it's twofold, right? The economics of each business model is different, and then a little bit of the offering towards the target customers and how it's perceived in that sense, right? Because it's still all under alternative finance, but if you look at peer-to-peer, then it's obviously a business for the peer-to-peer players where they make a fee for the origination to a larger extent and can rather, I think, compete probably with banks as being alternative to them when it comes to rates. At the same time as we have started as a direct lender, we have started with, I think, very close to the rates also Rich outlined. We have been able to bring this further down. Still, we have to pass a couple of 100 basis points to the customers, which obviously means that it somehow remains alternative in that sense, because one of the reasons, I guess, still why this is, I think, probably called alternative finance probably for 10 years now, is that obviously awareness isn't there because the offering is maybe faster and the UX is better and maybe decisions are often more positive, but the rates are still higher than what banks do, and that might be also the reason why many customers still eventually are not aware of this and don't switch. So that eventually is probably then the question, what to come. And I think as many direct lending companies kind of decide now to consider getting a bank license, that's probably a way to make this more mainstream in order to compete here well. At the same time, also banks are more and more running projects around digital transformations. Obviously, neobanks are coming in mostly on the consumer side still, but also I think slowly on the small business side. So that is also something for a player such as us with, I think, a very decent technology to basically leverage these streams, both on the more traditional side, but also when it comes to new players, to take advantage basically of that and make SME digital financing more mainstream. But in the end,
do you already have a reference of a neobank which would use your lending platform?
Yeah, it's not a neobank, but it's a fintech operating in the consumer and SME space, and which actually outside Europe. And we're currently in talks with 2 neobanks as well, exactly on. But again, as I said earlier, there's still the focus is predominantly on the consumer side. They grow the customer base massively, and I think on the business side, it's more small sole traders, and often they don't use the accounts as their main account. So with our technology, obviously also being connected to transactional data, that obviously means that there's still a way to go, also to become to make use of our solutions.
So in conclusion, Rich, I'm coming back to you. So you are going to be a bank, and we're going to watch your amazing progress and these millions coming in. Are you thinking about cooperating with fintechs or offering your lending services to traditional banks? Is that in the cards?
Yeah, we actually do it now. I mean, I think UK is certainly one of the leaders in open banking and leveraging APIs and integrating their solutions into fintechs. And we have we built a great platform to use ourselves to deliver great products such as current accounts, overdrafts, and lending propositions to our direct customers. And we know that other partners actually have some fantastic distribution points, both in the financial services industry, but even outside the industries. Think about the individuals that do interact with SMEs, accounting firms, accountants themselves, and how you can provide a digitally enabled solution that is not just a win for that SME, but the win for a distribution channel. And I use accounting firms as a great example. What do they want? They want data. Well, by actually onboarding an SME, getting access to their data, GDPR compliant, and allowing that accounting firm at any time, anywhere, to access that client's data to be able to facilitate their tax returns and VAT returns without interaction with the client is a huge win. And for us, using that and partnering with those, leveraging what we think is a state-of-the-art platform that we already have, and leveraging other people is certainly the future for us.
Christopher, do you think GDPR is going to change your business for the better? Are you thinking of integrating with fintechs or banks?
Yeah, we already work with banks together, especially in the field of the lending part, where we see that we do transactions together. We normally talk to companies that have maybe a lending volume of 10 million euros, and we are just part of the financing structure. Especially, we're not offering factoring or leasing or any other business parts, so we're partnering in that sense. So yeah, if I see GDPR changing there, I don't think so. It's not changing anything on the business model.
Not so far. Florian, what are your projects, your immediate projects?
At MiiMOSA, we have a vision. Farmers will be the heroes of the 21st century. In 30 years, the world's population has grown by more than 2 billion people, and by 2050, every day, our planet will need to feed 2,050 people more. So that's a big challenge. And farmers will be the heroes of the 21st century. So we are now targeting this year 20 million euros, and we are now working on the creation of the first private debt fund, only focused on the this thematic in order to accelerate this big challenge and to it's cool to talk about our product and our technology and our specificity, but it's cool as well to talk about the main global challenges like climate, environment, food, and agriculture. That's our mission.
Fantastic. I mean, as a French person, you know, we love food, and anything that we can do to improve the quality of food, we're all for it. So I think we'll be many investors, not only from France, I hope, but certainly from France. Jens, I give you the final word. We're going to end because I think we started, the counter didn't start on time. So what is your take from you know, this gathering of different business models to serve SMEs? You know, is there something new in SME finance?
Yeah, I think there are propositions emerging further, and I think becoming also more sophisticated in that sense. So I think overall, as the ecosystem also evolves, and as the topic of obviously external APIs or banking APIs being developed and also now leveraged more and more, actually makes me very confident that there is, I think, despite the differences in the business model, there's a home territory for each of the players. Obviously, there's going to be probably some kind of consolidation over time as well to come, but I'm very optimistic actually that SME financing in particular, it's rather going to be a better business field than it was 5 to 10 years back. And yeah.
Okay, so a very optimistic message. Thank you very much for your attention. So we are going to move on to the next session, which will be, I believe, on trade finance. Thank you.